All right, so Pastor Jeff talked about 1 Peter 5, verse 5 through 8 this morning here at Church on the Rock in our last Sunday before the new year for all of us, us here on the radio as well. So I want to start out by reading that. It said, "In the same way you were younger, submit yourselves to your elders. All of you, clothe yourself with humility towards one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your cares upon him, for he cares for you." I love that verse. "Be alert and sober-minded. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." So let's just take about 5 minutes and go over some of the things that Jeff said, as well as the points that he made on this morning's message. So he talked about different things. So the first point was about the humility. He said number one was to stay humble, and how humility is a choice, that we all have the choice to be humble or be prideful. We don't. When we're humble, we allow God to lift us up, and it's not ourselves. If you look at the definition of humble, if you look on Google or in a dictionary, one of the definitions that I was looking up here and getting ready for this ministry time, I kind of wanted to say, well, what's the definition of humble? That's not one thing that Jeff didn't, expand upon too much. But to be humble is a heart attitude of recognizing one's need for God. So you know that you need God, and you don't try to do everything on your own, but you go to God for answers and allow God to, have reign in your life. It's completely depending on him, and a willingness to not only serve others and serve God over ourselves. It's basically to serve others, as Jesus said, thinking of yourself less, not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less as far as, humbling yourself and acknowledging God to help us to get through whatever we need, leading us to gratitude and service, expressing gentle towards others, focusing our actions, and confessing. So that's all a part of staying humble. Humility isn't self-absorbent, but it's a recognition of God and his reign and his sovereignty, and your dependence on him as opposed to a dependence on yourself. Requiring submission to elders, as it talks about here in the verse, and others. It's putting a servant's heart like Jesus did in these verses. So God's grace to shine light to other people. So first point that Jeff got across and talked about was staying humble and how important that is. Number two, one I think is so important that it talks about in verse 7 of 1 Peter 5, that's cast your cares upon the Lord. So cast your cares on God. Be deliberate. Jeff talked about being deliberate in this area with casting your cares upon God, submitting things to God. You got to give things to God. Instead of trying to do things on our own, that's when our pride gets in the way, we need to give it over to God and apply that to our life. Identify specific areas and anxieties and pray for, don't be afraid to pray over them and hand them over to God, trusting that he will exalt you, not yourself being exalted, but that God will be the one that exalts you. So giving the things over to God. Now, how many of you guys know that that's a lot easier said than done? Trying to give things over to God. It can be a hard thing, but that's what God calls us to do. He wants us to give things over to God so that he can be glorified in the things that we're trying to do, and allowing God to move and be directive towards our life and what he has. And the last, and certainly not least point from 1 Peter 5 through 8 that Jeff was talking about, was to being alert or staying alert, because we have an enemy. Whether we like it or not, some people don't like to talk a lot about the devil, and Jeff pointed that out. But the devil is real, and he wants to hurt us. It says in the word that the devil, or they use the word thief, came to steal, kill, and destroy. and we don't want those things to happen. So we need to stay alert. Jeff also talked about lions here. They say it talks about like a roaring lion. If you know anything about lions don't attack you head on. They attack when you're not looking. And Jeff talked a little bit about this, how lions will attack when you're not looking. And compared in this verse here in 1 Peter 5, compared the devil to a lion. He will attack. If you're not staying alert, then you are prone to attack of the enemy. And we have to realize the enemy is real, and he does not want the best for us. And he will try to attack us if we are not alert and doing what God has called us to. Another version of the verse calls being alert sober-minded, which means clear-headed. So you think straight, you're alert or awake to spiritual realities, not spiritually dull or complacent. You do not want to be complacent, but alert. So this last one is so important. And another ways that you stay alert is by studying the Word of God. Know the Scriptures. What did Jesus do? Again, Pastor Jeff, last thing I'll say is Pastor Jeff talked about how Jesus was tempted by the devil in the garden, in the desert, and all the things. And what did he do? He took the Word and made a stand. The devil tried to twist the Word of God, but Jesus combated it with the Word of God. He drew his sword, which we know is the Word of God. Jeff mentioned to take the Word and stand. When Jesus was tempted, that's what he did, and that's what we can do, to be sober-minded, clear-headed, alert, so that the enemy does not have reign over our lives. So we can reflect on so we can be alert to temptation, alert to the tactics that the enemy might try the distractions and things that he tries to actively seek to destroy and to tempt us. We can say no. So again, the three things that we learn from 1 Peter 5 through 8 is, number 1, stay humble. Number 2, cast your cares on him and be deliberate. Number 3, be alert or stay alert, and don't allow the enemy to get to you. And keep the Word of God a priority and strong in your life. So that's a little bit about the message this morning that Pastor Jeff had here at Church on the Rock. In the